We made this.
Welcome to the Starlight Ballroom. Hey!
Hello and welcome to Shipwrecked and Comatose, the podcast about Red Dwarf here on the We Made This podcast network. This is our week of covering the first 7 issues of the Red Dwarf Smegazine. We're on issue 5, which means that this is our 5th day in a row that there has been a Shipwrecked and Comatose episode for you. We are just too kind, filling your ears full of this shite. With me at this time, and there's his laugh, that's Colin. Hello, Colin.
Hello.
Also with me is Carl. Hello, Carl.
Hello there. How you doing?
I still think this is a great idea, but it was mine. But we are 5 issues in, and I do genuinely wonder whether everyone's gone, what the actual fuck are these bellends doing?
They do that whenever we put an episode out, don't they?
True, but they come back, and I'm genuinely flabbergasted by how many people listen to us. Yeah. And I find it incredibly humbling, so thank you for listening to our inane shit.
Of course, you've jinxed that now. They're all going to fuck off.
They might, because this week's been a bit cray. Anyway, are you ready to talk about issue 5, you two?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, go on then. Okay, so on the cover it says July 92, which means it was released in June, and it has some more Colin Howard art, which has got busts of all the 5 characters around a...
nebula? Is that probably the right word?
Thing.
Lens flare.
Yeah. Spacey, swirly thing. I don't know.
I quite like this artwork. I think this is...
it's still cool. I just don't know what that is.
I do, but poor Crichton's face.
He does look sad, doesn't he?
He looks like somebody's pushed his nose in. Yeah, that's fair.
And there's an ad. It's not really an ad. What should I be calling it?
Inside.
Yeah, and on the cover it says inside is a Grey Charles interview and a competition to win a fucking T-shirt. Yeah. Which, as we know, costs £8 at this moment in time. I think I'd have been really excited with the opportunity to win a T-shirt. And £8 would have meant more to me at that time. But it just feels so daft that the competition prize is worth £8.
To be fair, there are 40 of them, so I don't know what the circulation figures were, but you'd probably got a fairly good chance of winning one of those.
I mean, considering every episode that they've been advertising the T-shirts, part of me feels like this was the least selling T-shirt out of the lot, and they weren't red.
True. So, we open up, and Carl, you noticed something, didn't you?
I did. I noticed that the actual sort of team of people has expanded since the first issue. So now we've got another features writer. We've got actually 2 feature artists as well, another photographer, and of course we've got the other artists now who are doing the other cartoon strips. I had a quick look into the artists to see what they were doing. They're both former Beano artists.
Ah.
One of them is Alan Burrows, who is the one who's doing the original one in this one, the Ace Rimmer strip, is a former Beano artist, but also went on to do things like Transformers and, unsurprisingly, 2000 AD. The other one, John Rushby, who's doing the Future Echoes one, which I think is actually one of the better drawn strips in this issue. I feel like it's one of the better drawn strips we had. Again, is a former Beano and Dandy artist, and didn't do a great deal more than that, apart from he did Earthworm Jim when that was a comic. But apart from that, he's either stuck with Beano and Dandy, or he's got out of the game altogether. So it's quite interesting to see. I'm not surprised at all that one of them went on to 2000 AD or was doing 2000 AD at the same time.
Yeah, well, they were both Fleetway, weren't they?
Yeah. It's interesting to see a dandy or Beano artist drawing something which isn't necessarily aimed at kids.
Yeah.
I think because, say, with them doing the Future Echoes, you've got the list of smoking, which they kept in the cartoons for some reason, and things like that. And it's I think it's quite interesting to see these artists and how versatile they could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with the artwork from everything on the cover to the comic strips. It's been great, much better than I honestly thought it would be when we first started to think we'd look at these magazines. So I've been blown away, really.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the artwork in this Future Echoes one, I think, is a million times better than the artwork in the End strip that we had, and it's the same artist. So I would say it's interesting to see how it's evolved. In the same way we've been talking about how the magazine's evolved as well.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, we do actually go straight onto the comic strip, and it's Future Echoes Part 2, and there's a nice 80s techie font for the toaster when he talks, which I thought, nice touch, love this. But it's the same kind of thing we've seen throughout, really. It is pretty much a direct script adaptation with pretty art.
Yeah. I do very much like the bit where Red Dwarf goes into Lightspeed and there's a panel with it going whoosh, which is a brilliant bit of art.
It's a great comic movement word as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whoosh.
It feels very comic-y. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I do feel like it's quite a complex episode to convert here, like stuff with the shaving in the mirror and things like that. And they do a pretty good job, actually.
I mean, they've got the thing where the comic panels start to warp.
Yes.
Like, Lister's elbow goes out of, like, the first panel, and that's the first sign where you realise something's wrong. And then the rest of the panels, until Holly sorts it out, are all, like, in one of them, Lister's stretching off the side of the panel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really good how they were playing with it. Weirdly, though, there is a Dr. Seuss Cat in the Hat in the background.
Yeah, I was going to say, why was that there?
It centre stage in the last panel of the strip. I don't know whether it was a bet or what, but...
Can we get away with doing this without being sued?
Yeah. And they mentioned marijuana gin.
Yes.
It's interesting. Again, when we're talking about the jokes for the adults as well as for the kids, the marijuana gin. I didn't get that joke when I was a kid watching the show, and I probably wouldn't have got it here.
If you were offered marijuana gin, would you try it?
Yes.
Colin?
No, because I don't drink or smoke. So
it's been a long, long time since I've been anywhere near narcotics. And I don't like gin. So marijuana vodka, maybe, but not marijuana gin.
Marijuana tea?
Marijuana tea, I'm in.
Yeah.
Fucking love tea. We've got an ad next, which is for Judge Dredd. Later on in the mag is an ad for Batman, an ad for 2000 AD, and an ad to build muscles first, which popped me. Absolutely popped me. I was like, I bet that if I'd bought this magazine, I'd have looked at my dick thin body and gone, I want to build muscles fast.
I was a bit confused by this advert because it looks real, but to me it kind of feels like it's one of the... I can't remember what episode it is where Rimmer starts... Oh, it's Better Than Life, where Rimmer mentions that Lister will sign up to anything to get... Please rush me, that one. And I was like, is that a spoof of that, or is that a genuine advert? Because it's got a proper postcode on it and stuff.
Yeah, I think it's real.
That's weird.
It's absolutely real. It's very 80s, actually. It's a bit weird that it's still there, really. But I think it's got to be genuine because I've seen stuff like that in American comic books that I used to read as a kid.
Yeah.
Around this time, actually, thinking about it. So I'm pretty sure it's real and it's not spoof. But it does look like a fucking spoof, doesn't it?
It does.
It's really weird. And part of me wonders, like, if depends on what they were aiming this magazine at, if they could have possibly got into trouble for it.
Yeah. I still don't think they knew who they were aiming the magazine at.
No,
Clearly.
definitely not.
And then next up is a pin-up, which is Dwayne Dibley. Later on in the mag is Lister with a bazookoid, Dwayne Dibley and William Doyle, and Rimmer in a frock with Mr. Flibble. 4 fucking pin-ups, they're pushing it.
Mm.
Yeah.
This one, especially, I mean, with what's coming up next as well, it kind of feels like this was a dry month. This was really a dry month for them. But it's always weird to see which pictures they pick for the pin-ups, because some of them are blatantly posed, and then some of them, it looks like just... Like, if we're doing it now, it'd be like a snapshot on VLC or something like that. Just like the one of Craig Charles just walking around the corner with a bazooka. It just looks like they snapped it between takes.
I don't get why they picked William Doyle either, because he's arguably the least iconic of the characters in Back to Reality.
Yeah.
I feel like Jake Bullitt and Dwayne Dibley are the standouts.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, probably because it's just funny to see Chris Barry do any form of wig work.
True. The next section is read any good books lately, but red is spelled R-E-D because it's a pun.
There was some high-fiving going on after that.
Although this definitely reads like we're a page short. Quick, write about some books you've read. And because neither of them are like recent books. They're both quite old science fiction and fantasy books that they're writing about.
Yeah, they review 2 different sci-fi books, Technicolor Time Machine by Harry Harrison and On a Pale Horse by Piers Anthony. And you 2 have poo-pooed this, but this is very much to my taste. I've got a fucking English degree. I love books. I was pleasantly surprised by this and thought there's an actual intellectual fucking article. I really liked this.
I like books. I can read. Admittedly, my favourite ones tend to be ones about giant crabs that are really terrible horror books by Guy N. Smith at the moment. But
that sounds great. Get that in me.
They're amazing. He's basically the real-life Garth Marenghi.
Have you read Slugs by Sean Hudson?
No, but I need to, because he's very much on the same level.
Mate, it's about slugs, what eat people. And there's one scene where this bloke sat on the toilet and he kind of comes up the toilet and starts on his dong. Fucking superb. I love horror, so it's not always intellectual shit, by the way.
Yeah, you need to read Guy N. Smith. Guy N. Smith is fucking amazing.
I just fucking love books. This came out of the blue, and I like the idea of book reviews for people who like Red Dwarf. You might like this. I think it's a great section. You 2 poo-pooed it.
Sorry. Have you read either of those?
No, have a fuck.
The Technicolor Time Machine one, I don't know what it is about that cover, but I feel like that style, especially the fonts on it, were everywhere.
Well, it's Josh Kirby, who did all the Discworld covers.
Yeah, I thought it was a Discworld one, but I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, it's definitely Josh Kirby art.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Now you say it. But yeah, it was really familiar. It was like, but I've never heard of that book, but it looks really familiar.
Yeah.
Next up is the advertised on the front cover T-shirt competition. You can write up to 50 words justifying someone to the Inquisitor. There are 40 T-shirts to win, and you can be Wilma Flintstone, Judge Dredd, Norman Wisdom, Christine Kachansky, Vera Duckworth, or Dwayne Dibley.
I really like the Inquisitor T-shirt, but the other one that they're showing here, the Red Dwarf 5-1, looks like one of the ones you'd get from a market.
It does, yes.
It does.
It's not a good design, is it?
No, it's there's something about like a full square picture on a white T-shirt that, if it's not originally meant to be a square picture, just looks naff.
Yeah.
If we'd prepped better for this, we could have kind of simulated this competition and had like a prize for people to write 50 words justifying basically rerunning the competition, but we haven't prepared for it. Maybe we'll do that another time. Maybe we won't. Next up is Holly Calling, which is another one of Holly's monologues underneath thematic pictures. And she talks about games, chess, Scrabble, etc. And yeah, I didn't love this. I didn't hate it. It was odd, and it definitely had a good understanding of Holly.
Yeah,
I quite liked it.
The better than life picture with the skull with all the wires going into it. I remember thinking at the time it was fucking badass, and I still do.
Yeah,
Because it's a skull.
Skull, metal.
I like
Exactly.
the fact that the continuity of Better Than Life being lethal has worked its way into the magazine when it never really did in the TV show.
Yes, there's a few bits where I've noticed that they've taken on things. I think it might have been in the A to Z one. That was a fillery bit. They were talking about Lister going on a Monopoly board pub crawl and waking up in a dress with a passport saying "in the name of Emily Birkenstein."
Yeah,
which is obviously the book, but not really mentioned in the series.
it's interesting because you've got these two continuities almost now. We've got the telly continuity and the book continuity, and the book one is a lot harsher.
Yes.
Like, especially when you get to stuff like Last Human. Last Human's brutal in places.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot bleaker. You're absolutely right. We should cover the books at some point. We're going to, just not yet, because I haven't read them. Well, haven't reread them. I read them probably around this time, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you've never read them before, you're in for a treat.
Oh, I have. I've read them all, but I was like 15 when I read them, and then perhaps a little bit older when the more recent ones came out. But I kind of bought them when they came out, so I've not read them since. So I'm really looking forward to that. Spoilers, more specials coming your way, but that's because I really like specials.
I like the specials. They're great.
Good, I'm glad. Next up is the episode guide to Series 2, Dull. That's all I've got to say.
No, it does explain why they've been doing it in such a weird order, though. Because
Go on.
they've only got black and white pictures for Series 2.
I quite like the black and white pictures for Series 2.
Yeah, but it says, well, we couldn't put it off any longer. Here at last is our guide to Series 2, the only series we don't have any decent colour photos of. So now you know why we chose to run our guides in such a cockeyed order. So the whole time they've been trying to look for different photos of Series 2, and they obviously couldn't just take a screenshot.
Yeah. I initially, when it said, episode guide Series 2, I was like, haven't we had this one? I did that's how much I've been disliking the episode guide. It's like, haven't we done 2 already? I'm sure we've done 2 already.
I actually thought that the black and white photos were a highlight. I thought it was really quite nice and a bit arty-farty, but I just don't feel like that is a good reason to do it in a cock-arse order.
Yeah.
Anyway. They were crap anyway, so why do I care?
And the videos were released in a fucking random order, so
Yeah.
it's in keeping with that, at least.
Yeah, true. Next up is the Craig Charles interview, which basically compares Craig to Lister. And it's another fantastic interview where they've really obviously taken the time to genuinely interview Craig and get some really interesting stuff. All these interviews have been brilliant.
Yeah.
I think it's quite fun. There's a couple of little, when you get these little things that kind of return in the future. Like he talks about a special he did on BBC One, but it was against Coronation Street.
Yes.
And it sort of went, it got a lot of media attention because in the time slot, it was the only thing you could write about because there's only so much you could write about Coronation Street. Like, interesting.
Which he then ends up being on.
Yeah. I actually really like the fact that they reference Cyberzone. Fucking Cyberzone. I haven't thought about that since forever. I can't wait to do a special on Cyberzone.
There's one video of Cyberzone on YouTube that I found. And because you two know I do this, as I'll send things going, look at this that I found online. Yeah. I sent it to the guys that Play Your Pods Right. And Steve's who hosts it and producer it, is a very quite calm person and very sort of like mild-mannered. I just got a message going, what the fuck is this?
It's like Nightmare, but wrong.
Yeah.
Hosted by Craig Charles. And I don't feel like that's a bad thing. We need to look at Cyberzone.
Yeah. I remember going on, like, I think I went on holiday, and, you know, it was the old VR ones where you sort of stand on a platform, but it's got a ring around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you put the massive helmet on. I couldn't see what the hell I was doing. And I must have thought, like, I remember thinking, like, Cyberzone must have been terrible. Well, then I've got the magazine open in front of me here. Cyberzone is being done by Broadsword, who are the people that did Nightmare.
Well, that does make a lot of sense, doesn't it?
If you think about it, it's sort of like a Warhammer versus 40k thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
True. There's some other really interesting stuff in the interview as well. I didn't know that he used to go out with Susanna Ratican, who was...
Deb.
No, it wasn't Deb.
Oh, not Deb.
She was Lister's Camille in
That was it.
Camille. She was the girl that he offered to go and get changed into his Spider-Man suit. That didn't last, unfortunately. I wonder who dumped whom.
I really like the bit where they've got the really obvious question of, is there much similarity between yourself and Lister then? And then he says, well, I've just been reading this thing in Vox, which is a magazine I really want to do in free with this month's issue at some point, which is an interview with all of us, which sounds like, obviously he was there, but he's only read this in Vox, so I don't think he was paying attention at the time when they were doing the interview. But apparently Rob Grant said, once we were having breakfast and Craig came down and said he was worried about people thinking he was Lister. While he was talking, he took a sausage off Danny's plate, poured some tomato juice on the table, dipped the sausage into the juice and ate it. He didn't realise what he was doing.
I'd actually heard that before. They must love that story because you remember we talked about there was like the coffee table book back in the day?
Yeah.
And it sort of covered everything. That story is like one of the first things in that book. So I wonder if the people who worked on the Smegazine worked on that book, because that story was in there from Rob Grant, and I was like, and seeing this again just reminded me of it. Yeah.
Next up is the fun page, which has Cat's ... and Lister's word search, and the word search. I was sat on my own and I laughed out loud and laughed a lot. I fucking love the fun page.
It took me a minute to read it properly, but yeah.
Yes, because when Lister's saying that Rimmer's got annoyed with him last time for insulting him, so this time he's not going to do that. So the answers to the word search are obviously beer, lager and ale, but when you've crossed those out, it says, Arnold Rimmer is a complete and utter tosspot.
It's
just happenstance. It's just complete coincidence.
Random letters, yes.
The humour of the fun page every time is very much my kind of stupid ass, childish ridiculousness. I just every time it's the highlight of every issue. I'm sorry, I can't help myself.
That's fine.
They also mention Cat's fetish for hugely over-endowed Valkyrie warriors, which is another thing that's from the books.
Yes.
But I think it gets mentioned in Camille, but it's mostly in the books.
It does get mentioned in Camille, you're right. Next up is the subscription ad, which features the Inquisitor. I think this is the first time we've seen them offer to do a subscription.
Yes, it is.
It does make me realise how good that mask was, the Inquisitor mask.
Yeah, it's great.
I've never seen anybody... I've seen a lot of cosplay stuff. I've never seen anyone try and remake that one.
It would be a tough make, but I think that would be an awesome cosplay outfit.
I've only just noticed, zooming in on it, that there's like loads of different random skull faces on the side.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I think going back to what you were saying about issue 4, Carl, I think they've got their confidence that they're onto a good thing here. They've got it right. They've got their format, and they're obviously getting the right number of people buying it as well. So I think, again, the subscription is the next stage of we're confident enough that there's going to be 12 more of this.
Yeah.
Or we need people to give us the money now, up front, so that there can be 12 more of this.
I mean, that would be the cynical way of looking at it, Colin.
Well, I'm very cynical, as you know, Ted.
Next up is All Things Crichton Beautiful, which is another wonderful Red Dwarf short story in comic book format. Oh, I just love it. Crichton does like a monologue and a tour of Red Dwarf with an incompetent scutter cameraman. And it's just what I like about comic strips, particularly if it's a TV adaptation, is when it does something that they clearly couldn't do in the show. And this does that. This is fantastic.
Yes, they probably wouldn't be able to resurrect W.G. Grace.
Yeah,
A hologram version of him appearing. See, the problem I have with this is I know we don't really pay that much attention to continuity errors because they're all over the place and we don't care.
Right.
But it's talking about Red Dwarf having a hollow chamber, like the holodeck in that much lesser program.
Yeah.
That would destroy Rimmer's character entirely, because he wouldn't be so lonely and desperate if there was a holodeck where he could touch people and have whatever he wanted happen on there. It would completely change his character.
Yeah, that is a fair point. And I think there's also the thing that they probably wouldn't be making mini golf courses in their quarters if they could go to the holodeck.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, there's always the theory that they just Crichton's not got round to telling them about it yet.
There you go. There's always a way to work it out on Red
Headcanon.
Dwarf.
Yeah. Although in this he does mention that Rimmer's used it because that's how he figures W.G. Grace is there, because Rimmer enjoys cricket. Which my favourite bit of it, though, is, I think I talked about this in one of the regular episodes, is it gives a description of where the cat lives.
Yes. Which I thought about that. Have we ever seen the cat's quarters?
No, never seen it. The only other time you sort of see where he lives is when he's living on Starbug.
Yeah.
But on Red Dwarf, the describing it here is like, oh, it's immaculate and it's so tidy, everything's tidied away, and there's a 4-foot ball of yarn.
Yeah.
And maybe it's kind of that thing of it's better if you don't see it, so it's more in the imagination.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do wish that they'd explore the ship more. If it's supposed to be the size of a city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of them not knowing that it's there is fucking hilarious. And it does make sense if it's the size of a city. But I don't think that's it. I think it's another fucking smeg up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the ultimate joke would be that there's teleporters on Red Dwarf that could send them home.
I think I'm going to correct myself here. I don't think it's a comic strip. It's more an illustrated short story.
It's like the Rupert stories.
Yeah. What is there a term for that?
Short story with some pictures.
I think they were called comic strips, but the thing that we call comic strips now is like the Americanized version.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because I used to get like Rupert books when I was little, and they'd always be like one picture and then a lot of text.
Yeah, which is what this is. So illustrated short story, I suppose. It's not a comic strip. I've changed my mind because even the Red Dwarf Smegazine shouldn't have 3 comic strips.
Depends if they're all really good.
I really liked All Things Crichton Beautiful, but I get that you're right that it does kind of fuck with the continuity.
It's still a beautiful pun.
It is. Although I now have got that in my head and I'm a fucking humanist. If there's one thing I don't want in my head, and Jax from Cerebral Jukebox can sort me out, it's bloody hymns.
I can get her onto that.
And lo, for I am Jax, and I will remove all hymns from your brain when I lay my hands upon thee.
Oh, thanks, Jax. Guest star, Jax. I love it. Next up is the Red Dwarf two-way quiz, which we've seen before, where there's some reasonable questions and then there's some dead hard questions. So, gentlemen, how did you do in the questions you should get in a few minutes?
I didn't do too badly. And the first one, it's weird because there's a lot of little details. It's like, oh, I should know that. Like, how many episodes has the toaster appeared in?
That you have to think about where it was when the... How many episodes up until Series 5 did Talkie Toaster appear in? Although, I don't know if he appeared after that anyway.
I think I got 8 altogether. Yeah, I did. I couldn't remember the hotel.
The hotel I got wrong because I thought it was the Mimas Hilton. It's the Ganymede Holiday Inn. I think the Mimas Hilton features in the books, which I've reread recently. I've got a feeling that was where I think that might feature near the start before Lister goes to Red Dwarf.
Right. Yeah, I got the toaster one wrong and the hotel one wrong, but I got the others.
Yeah,
I got 7. How did you do in the ones you won't get in 3 million years?
I think I got like 2.
That's your worst one yet, Carl.
Let me have a look. So I need to refresh myself.
How about you, Colin?
I think again it was 2 of them. Yeah,
I got 3, but I didn't make a note of which ones I got.
well, the who played the Lift Music Classics on one of his many albums is far too easy. That should have been in the first one.
Yeah,
I got about 5.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah, sorry.
And I got what did Holly claim was the only thing keeping him sane? His collection of singing potatoes, because that was in one of the SOS bits.
Yeah, I got that one.
I don't know why I remembered who supplied Lister's sausage and onion gravy sandwiches, but it's Louis. I think it's because going back to the trope we have of things that we say in actual life. It's Luigi's Fish N Chip Emporium, and I do use the N bit whenever I want to say rock and if I'm saying like rock and roll or something like that.
Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Next up is the comic strip, and it's definitely a comic strip this time. It is a cartoon drawn by a person with script and stuff. And it's Ace Rimmer, Space Adventurer. It's an original one, and it's basically an addendum to the ending of Dimension Jump. And I was absolutely over the moon that they revisited Deb Lister and Arlene Rimmer. I thought that was such a good idea.
Yeah, the fact that they've combined the two and had Ace Rimmer visiting them is brilliant, because it makes perfect sense because he's going to various different parallel universes. And it's a really good idea. The ending's a little bit ick, to use one of Mark's terms.
True.
Because I don't think Ace would do that. Basically, sorry for spoilers for everybody. Read it, pause it, read it. Then at the end of the story, Deb Lister is unexpectedly pregnant from Ace, where she was expecting him to get pregnant like Lister did. And he just abandons her with the baby, that doesn't seem like an Ace thing to do. That seems like a normal Rimmer, maybe.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess, I don't know, you could argue that his mission is more important, but it does suck absolute balls.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's definitely got a bit more of the adult humour when she's playing with Playful Pete, her polythene pal. In comics, I know sometimes they'll do, I think Spider-Man was a good example, they'll do one where it was an anthology series of other characters apart from Spider-Man. Yeah. I think it was called like Web of Spider-Man or whatever, and they had one about the wrestler who he beat in the origin story and things like that. They could almost do a whole series of just other characters and what they did next.
Yeah.
And this is apart from, like we say, the ending being a bit ick, it would make a great one. I mean, it already has made a great one. You meet the princess and it's Holly, or a version of Holly. And there's the very silly gag in there where she wants him to stay, and he said he'll stay for another hour Or she says, "Will you stay for an hour? Better make it 2 hours." And he doesn't leave for another 4 hours. It's like, I mean, it's Bond, isn't it? It's definitely Bond. But there's some fun stuff in it, like Arlene Rimmer trying to pick a new uniform, and she just keeps going through all the military outfits. One of them's Napoleon. And it's really good.
Wouldn't it be Napoleon?
Oh, yeah.
Napolina.
Napoleon. I do feel that this was written by someone who has a deep knowledge of the show and a real love of it, because the little touches are great. Hilly is male after meeting Holly.
Yeah.
Arlene is grey, which, they've established with their comics. Jim and Bexley are there, and there's a parallel universe version of Crichton who's called Daisy. All these wonderful creative touches really made me smile.
Yeah, well, it was written by Howarth and Lyons, the main feature writers that have been writing the features all the way through, so they're obviously fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, the artwork's great, the story's great. Other than that ending, it's another original story, which it's what I want.
The final line of it as well, where I think it's Ace's computer says, "Oh, I think I've just realised why they call it a dimension jump." That is a very 80s, 90s use of the term jump.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
I think the only reason I know that version of the term jump is because back in the day I saw the film, was it Rita and Sue and Bob 2?
Yeah.
You ever seen that?
Yes.
And they use the term jump a lot, as in to have sex.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting one. The ending is a bit ick, but it's also very in line with Ace, that he defies the laws of a dimension.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, his virility goes against the entire biological setup of this reality. But it's you can say it's ick, but also you can kind of go, well, that happened to Lister.
Yeah.
In the episode as well.
True.
Yeah. It's like Revenge.
Yeah. And she did ditch him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. It's the exact same thing happening, but it seems really odd that it's the woman being ditched, because it's almost what we know as the trope. The man just coldly ditches her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's ick, but it does kind of sort of make sense.
Yeah.
And moving on. Next up is Holograms, which has more letters with Holly and the editor, and it's a mix of real ones and fake ones again. And did you notice that there was a letter from Mark Adams?
I did. Yes.
I'd like to point out it wasn't me. I wish it was, and I wish I could reveal on this podcast that I wrote in and my letter got published. It's a different Mark Adams, unfortunately.
I realised it wasn't you because it was somebody talking with great interest about the US specials, so I knew it wasn't you.
My favourite bit on the Holograms this time is the last letter, where Noel Harris from Braunton, is there any chance in future issues to see technical details of Red Dwarf and Starbug, or would that be too boring? Which instantly reminded me of, there was the year before, or the year before this, another Fleetway publishing title that I used to read obsessively, Thunderbirds the comic. And I've got a really strong memory of when I was 9 years old then, lying on a grass bank at school at the edge of the playground with me and my mate James, reading Thunderbirds the comic, and in the centre pages they always had like a really cool cutaway technical details of like Thunderbird 2 or Thunderbird 4 or something like that in each one. And yeah, that'd be ace to have like Starbug, Blue Midget, Red Dwarf, that kind of thing in there. Obviously, they couldn't do it with Red Dwarf because it changes from episode to episode where everything is.
True.
I swear I've seen, the old like car guides that you used to get with the diagram on the front. I'm sure I've seen a T-shirt or some piece of like fan merch on Redbubble or something, which is that, but it's Starbug.
Yeah, you'll almost certainly the Haynes manuals.
Yeah,
I've got one for Crowley's car from Good Omens, so
right.
they'll do it for that. There's definitely going to be one for Starbug.
They definitely did them. There was one for the man. Not fuck me. I nearly said Mandalorian instead of the DeLorean.
Yeah, I used to have one. I used to have one of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, and they've done Doctor Who ones. They've even done a Wallace and Gromit one. It's a thing that Haynes did, and good for them making money.
Yeah,
but I don't know whether there's actually a Starbug one. There might just be a T-shirt of the Starbug one, like you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like we've said now that, putting the merchandise in the hands of the fans, they have come up with some creative stuff.
Yeah. The fair play as well in this section. They published a really fucking critical letter that just absolutely slated them. I'm like, I don't think I'd have published that if I was editing this magazine.
Is that the one where he's saying, I think it's aimed mainly at a student audience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the reason that they've done that is they've answered every point, and they disagree with most of them.
True.
They're saying he's saying, I think that the blueprint of this is you appear to be copying Doctor Who magazine. Why don't you do it more like Doctor Who magazine? And they're going,
yeah,
we're not copying Doctor Who magazine, so that's why we don't make it more like Doctor Who magazine.
Yeah.
Not all of our jokes are obvious. This isn't the Beano,
Yeah.
Even though they've got Beano writers and
artists, yeah.
And I was reading both at the same time because I was the target audience for both magazines.
Brilliant. So, next issue, we're going to have an interview with Rob Grant and Doug Naylor. There will be a TV adaptation comic strip, Lister's Cookery returns, and something called The Name Game.
I'm glad you could read that, because I couldn't bloody read it with that big blue mark going through it.
Yeah.
This is the thing. We are reading electronic copies that are poor quality. I would love to know, maybe try and get my hands on just one copy that I can get cheap on eBay, what kind of quality the paper is for these things.
Yeah. From what I remember, it was very, like, Beano comic kind of paper, rather than sort of glossy magazine paper.
Yeah, it was the main cover was glossy, and then inside it was more newsprinty type.
Mm.
And that's why it's been difficult for whoever's done this to scan it, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I can imagine they've tried to put a filter on to kind of neaten it up a bit so it wouldn't look as sort of dot matrixy, and in some places it does, in some places it doesn't.
Yeah. But whoever did it, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
I've had a lovely time with these.
Well, now I know how I can build muscles fast and noticeable results in 28 days.
All right, Colin, you can go first. As usual, favourite and least favourite section.
I think despite the ending, my favourite bit was Ace from a Space Adventurer. Because original stuff is great. More of it. Least favourite bit, it's the episode guide.
Of course it is. Carl, what about you?
Again, it's the Ace from a Space Adventurer for me. Yeah, as Colin said, it's good, new stories, and they're good. They could easily be a bit embarrassing or whatever. Obviously, the ending's a bit, but it's still very, very good, and the art's fantastic on it. I'm going to try and pick something different from the episode guide, because otherwise I think we're going to say the episode guide for every episode. Well,
this is the last time we can do it.
Oh, good point. I'll do the episode guide then. Let's go for the full clean sweep.
Well, I'm sure you're not surprised. Fuck the episode guide. And for me, it was really, really tough on my favourite section. I could have actually gone for the book reviews. I know that's dumb. I'm not going to go for that. Definitely could have gone for the fun page. Definitely could have gone for All Things Crichton Beautiful. This is definitely the strongest issue yet. But I'm also going to go clean sweep. Mm-hmm. This is our first clean sweep with Ace Rimmer Comics. So we've actually clean swept it. Right, so I don't know. What should we plug today? How about your favourite podcast that isn't on the We Made This Podcast Network? Carl?
At the moment, I'm listening to a lot of a podcast called Sequelizers, where a team of 3 writers / filmmakers take either a bad sequel and do a fresh pitch for it, or they come up with a new sequel, and they're doing a lot of stuff. They're in between series at the moment, so they're doing what we do, which is they're doing a lot of specials, and they've recently been doing things like, films that are set in London, or films with magic, or films with AI, and it's really interesting and good fun, and it's well worth checking out.
Cool.
Brilliant. Colin, how about you?
Oh, man. There's so many to choose from. I listen to lots of podcasts. I think I'm going to have to go with Chart Music, because Chart Music is absolutely amazing. Very, very long. Episodes only come out about a month, but they're split into 4 or 5 episodes that are like 2 hours long each, and then they'll put out a 7-hour-long version with it all together. But it's basically a load of old Melody Maker journalists watching an old episode of Top of the Pops and absolutely ripping into it, and they're fucking hilarious and absolutely brilliant.
Cool. I would have said play your pods right, but we've already plugged that on this episode already. It's by our friend Steve, and it's about game shows, and they look at a different game show every week. So I'm not going to say that. I'm going to go for Hello from the Hallowoods instead, which is a queer horror narrative podcast, and it's so good. Absolutely sublime stuff. And on one of the episodes, I played Anderson Faust.
Excellent.
Episode 21, I think. So, that is all we got time for today. We'll be back tomorrow with issue 6. So until then,
Seriously though, lads, where is my Thribble?
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast, was created and produced by Mark Adams and Kurt North. You can find us on Twitter at Red Dwarf Pod, and we are part of the We Made This Podcast Network, which can be found online at wemadethispod.com or on Twitter at wemadethispod.
Hello everyone, this is Tony, Network Chief of We Made This. As you know, our podcast network brings together a brilliant assortment of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you just listened to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling. Elsewhere on We Made This. Real Talk, the We Made This movie show.
I watched Rabid Grannies on YouTube for free, and it's got hundreds of thousands of watches. And these are things that they've already made their profit from. So these old films, the Troma just stuck them all up and made some extra money off them, and bravo, because they weren't making money from these extortionate eBay sales, but they made money from the free views on YouTube. So I think that's ace. I think bringing those ludicrous films to a new generation, or indeed an old generation who don't want to pay insane amounts, is nothing but a positive thing.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know about that.
We dig music.
I need to be very careful this month who I slag off. In the 1968 episode, I slagged off Nick Cayman, and he died.
Did you fucking kill him?
Yes, I killed Nick Cayman.
Did you
kill him with your thirst, just imagining him in that advert. Your weird, thirsty thoughts just finally did for him.
You do realise, Tracy, I've just recorded your confession and I will be sending it to the authorities. Yeah, try not to kill anyone, Tracy.
I'll try.
Fuck's sake.
The Time Is Now, a Millennium podcast.
But my whole world fell apart. And all they could do, the whole universe, was to silently move on. A quote from author and poet Khadija Rupa. There's one thing about trauma that's especially cruel. It's not the physical and psychological scars you'll have to carry with you your entire life. And it's not the friendships or relationships that may end because of the emotional ramifications as a result of it. It's that life goes on.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.